Welcome to FlavorScience from FlavorSum, where we explore some of the formulation and flavor challenges that brands face with food and beverage product development. In today's episode, we're discussing how flavor can help deliver a serene taste experience. I'm Lisa Jackson, Director of Marketing. Today's session is the first of a four-part series that explores our 2025 flavor predictions. We use an experiential lens to forecast the direction of flavors. Each of our predictions centers on how food and beverage brands can use flavor to help deliver taste experiences that are becoming increasingly desirable for shoppers. Today, we're discussing the quest for serenity and ways in which flavors can soothe, rejuvenate, and support relaxation goals. Before we begin, though, just a few housekeeping notes. If you've received flavored creamer samples, please have them nearby along with the beverage that you'll flavor. If you have questions, please use the Q&A function to submit them. We'll strive to answer as many as we can in the time we have available today. But if we don't get to your question, we'll follow up with an answer via email. You will receive a copy of the slides and the recording as a follow-up email. And we post them on the website. And then they're also available on our new podcast platform called FlavorScience from FlavorSum. It's now available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The team sharing insights today and applications expertise includes Philip Beckett. He's the Senior Consumer Insights Manager at FlavorSum, and Kelsey Cheadle. She's a Senior Dairy Application Scientist. Now, as Phil and I were planning this webinar, we were talking about what serenity means for people. So you ever notice how a coffee shop just slows things down? The warmth, the quiet buzz, it's a pause in the day.
Yeah, as the world outside rushes by, in here it's a little bit different. It's that first sip, the one that tells you to stop and take a breath.
There's an aroma that calms you. And then there's the warmth of the cup in your hands that's comforting.
And that's when you realize it's not just coffee. This is a moment, it's just for you. It's that moment of serenity.
And so while we recognize serenity, it seems sort of like an abstract concept. You know, we're familiar with stress relief or relaxation. Those ideas do tend to tie to moments in time. But serenity is really a way of living. It provides a steadiness. It buoys you, and it helps you return to peacefulness and calm no matter what happens. A state of serenity actually enables better focus and overall cognitive function. Being serene also helps us achieve emotional stability and build resilience. It's a really powerful goal. So using food and beverage to support health and well-being isn't a new idea. It really gained momentum in the 80s and 90s when the USDA released dietary guidelines, and the research about the link between diet and health surged. That led to a modification where we started talking about My Healthy Plate to help people plan a little bit more accordingly. Now, we've all talked about comfort foods like chocolate, ice cream, or mac and cheese, those that kind of help us feel better. But one of the first pieces of definitive research that links what we eat to emotional health was actually published in 1998. It showed a correlation between eating fish and reduced depression. Within the last decade, especially post-pandemic though, this idea of feeding the mind has really become a popular topic of conversation where food really becomes the focal point that determines the quality of our life in many different areas. So, social listening platform Tastewise notes that discussions of serenity in the context of food and beverage has increased about 44% in the last year. That far outpaces the overall topic of food and beverage, which is flat. You know, people continue to talk about foods. Now, generations think differently about serene experiences. But before we get to that, let's talk about the different experiences here. You know, because people don't necessarily know they're having a serene moment, when we ask them to describe, you know, how does it feel when you're experiencing serenity? These are the types of experiences that are becoming more important in the last year. So this idea of relaxation or comfort or cozy, that's familiar. But there's also a pathway to serenity if you have an indulgent or premium experience. Celebratory experiences can lead to that moment of serenity, along with the traditional or almost nostalgia feeling. And then what's interesting to us, and we'll talk about it in a moment, is this idea of a rejuvenating food and beverage experience can support serenity as well. But generations do have different ideas about it. All the generations are, but they do have different perspectives on what serenity means to them. So Gen Z views serene eating experiences as those that are relaxing, indulgent, easing. And surprisingly, Gen Z associates serenity more with Asian cuisines than other types of foods. They're the only generation that links serenity to a specific type of cuisine. For millennials, serenity ties more to tradition and perhaps nostalgia and the coziness along with rich premium sensations. For Gen X, serene eating and drinking ties to upscale experiences. It's all about gourmet, artists, and premium indulgence. So they're just sort of wrapped into that sensory experience as they're eating and drinking that leads them to feel really good. And then for boomers, discussions actually increase the most among all the generations. But they're increasingly interested in the mood-boosting properties of serenity. They also mention indulgence, but they want convenience and something that's really attractive to eat as well. So people describe a serene experience across a spectrum that we covered here, right? So there's definitely a range of expectations, and food or drinks that rejuvenate tie us to serenity because those experiences can help us fight fatigue. They improve physical function. They help us achieve a tangible balance that's essential to our emotional stability. So we looked more deeply into ways food and beverage brands can fulfill this desire. You can formulate foods and drinks that stimulate neurotransmitters. These are the chemical messengers that help regulate your cognition, your emotions, your movement, and even your sleep. Tea is an example of a beverage that's known for positive effects on brain function because it contains theanine. And in the brain, that increases levels of serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. So your formulation and the type of product that you produce can support this idea of serenity. Now, we know that texture plays an important role in flavor perception and the eating or drinking experience overall. Some textures can contribute to serenity. It can make food seem richer, leading to higher levels of satisfaction and enjoyment. And, matching the expected texture to formulation can help you meet expectations. So, we think of savory foods as crunchy or chewy, and sweeter foods are usually softer. They might have a lighter bite or a smoother sensation, but you can also surprise people and add a little bit of crisp to an ice cream or a little bit of smoothness to a snack. I think it's just this idea of helping people pay attention to the sensations that they're having that ties them to serenity. Now, we've already talked a little bit about food's ability to calm, especially when the food is familiar and something that people like. But perhaps a newer idea is the effect that healthier foods and beverage have on our state of serenity when we feel good and confident that what we're consuming will support our body and mind. It helps us relax and get into that peaceful state. Remember, we're looking for that balance, and the health and wellness goals and finding something that sustains you there is a way to get to serenity also.
And so when we look at social listening in terms of serenity, we took a look at several different foods, beverages, and ingredients that people are discussing more often in terms of that serene experience. So this comes from TasteWise. And think of, if anybody took a Business 101 course, we all learned about product adoption life cycle, early, emerging, trending. So we looked at those emerging, trending, and mature foods, beverages, and ingredients that bring that serenity. Within foods, an emerging food is burrata, so a very rich cheese that brings a lot of that comfort and tradition from the Italian side of things. Trending foods include things like gelato, so very indulgent and serene. You take a moment to consume that. But also Mandarin, talked about Gen Z and Asian Mandarin, an Asian citrus. And then when we look at those mature flavors, things that people have been talking about for a long time when it comes to foods, we see things like churro, so traditional in Hispanic, maybe novel in American and Canadian, pistachio, an old world flavor that is really, brings that serenity home when it comes to food. In terms of beverages, this is where we start to see hydration. So coconut water, it's good for you. It's a serene experience, but also a lot of alcohol, whether it's alcohol or alcohol flavors, perhaps in a dessert. Bananas Foster flambéed with brandy, perhaps. And then in terms of ingredients, we start to see things that are functional, so tarragon, lemongrass, cardamom, but that also have a lot of flavor, and also some very premium experiences, saffron being a very expensive spice that brings that serenity with that premium taste.
So we know that flavors are essential to delivering a serene experience too. It's not just about the food, but how good it tastes. And so from a formulation perspective, flavor systems that are multisensory, so those that provide aroma, a front, a middle, an end, even lingering notes, and complement that texture that we talked about earlier, that really helps people live in the moment and truly enjoy the experience. We've seen the rise of flavors with complexity. And even if brands don't realize it, flavors with complexity help people slow down. They become more aware and interested in that taste experience. And the immersion in the taste experience is what helps them find that moment of serenity. Brands that are recognizing this trend, because of more than 9,000 flavors featured in North American food and beverage launches in the last 5 years, about 90% of them actually call out some type of flavor combination. Flavor combinations in beverage launches actually increased by 24%, so combos are big. And then on the food side, flavor combos increased by about 9% in terms of food innovation. But even singular flavors, like vanilla or strawberry, can promote a mindful eating experience because they have hundreds of flavoring components that can engage the senses and really satisfy people.
And so again, thinking about beyond foods and beverages and ingredients, what flavors evoke that serene experience? We see a lot of emerging flavors when it comes to sweetness. So delivering that sweet, serene experience. And we see quite a bit of Asian and tropical fruits emerging. So things like ube, papaya, kiwi, lychee, dragon fruit, all up double digits in discussions talking about serenity and associated terms. In terms of savory flavors, so as Lisa mentioned, maybe crunchier or chewier, we see things like cheddar up triple digits, 300%. Cheddar bringing that serene experience, not necessarily on its own, but as a flavor component. We see nuts similar to how we saw pistachio. We see hazelnut really rising, along with pistachio again here. And then that beverage, that functional beverage with matcha. So bringing that tea component, as Lisa mentioned, that provides some of that brain boosting capabilities. And in terms of beverage flavors, again, we see alcohol expressed here with Merlot and Riesling, but also some flavors from different cuisines and spicy. So with that horchata coming through here as well, growing 90% in serene discussions in the past year. And so at this point, we're going to be moving on to exploring what some of these serene flavors are like in the form of those creamers. So we have a few pre-recorded videos explaining how we're going to go through this process. So sit back, enjoy for the next 90 seconds as Kelsey explains what we're going to be doing.
Hello, my name is Kelsey Cheadle. I'm a senior application scientist here at FlavorSum. If you receive samples, here's what they'll look like. We process these samples using our microthermics equipment. And so with that equipment, we were able to model a UHT direct steam injection process, just like you would make a coffee creamer with on a large production scale. This product was formulated to be very similar to your traditional coffee creamers that we're very familiar with, that we know and love. You can use the microthermics for a variety of applications. So today we've done coffee creamers, but I've personally used it for protein shakes, non-dairy milks, ice cream mixes. You can use microthermics for refreshing beverages, for ready-to-drink coffees, for all sorts of different applications. So your sample kit should have included 3 creamer samples. We have an amaretto, a pistachio, and a horchata. They're in 60 ml bottles, about 2 ounces. Today I'll be dosing them into iced coffee, but you could dose them into hot coffee, you could dose them into hot tea. So now's a good time to take a couple minutes and go ahead and get your creamers and your beverages ready. You can dose your creamer to preference. I would say if you have about an 8-ounce cup of coffee, I would use half the bottle. If you have a Starbucks Grande in front of you, you could go ahead and go for the whole thing, but it's absolutely to taste.
We're going to start off with our amaretto coffee creamer. And as you're prepping that, I want to talk through some of the reasons why we chose amaretto as that serene flavor for our first sample. And so we relied heavily on TasteWise, so that social listening tool. What are people talking about? It's a forward-looking tool. Within beverages over the past year, discussions around amaretto have grown slightly, pretty stable, but coffee and amaretto, so that combination with that beverage and the flavor, those discussions are up about 4% in the past year. And then with tea plus amaretto, those are up nearly 23% in the past year. About 9,000 people are talking about amaretto in beverages. We see a number of recipes, over 1,000 recipes that include amaretto in beverages, and a number of restaurants are using this flavor as well, specifically within beverages. Looking at some of the most popular items, either on Uber Eats, so home delivery, or from Pinterest, so recipe saves. We see this butter almond amaretto milk tea, so again, bringing that tea and amaretto together. Popular on Uber Eats. And then some recipes. People are seeking out recipes to make an amaretto coffee creamer at home. Over 3,000 people saved this, indicating that they're interested in this and it's not available where they're shopping. And then we see this also as a flavor component in an indulgent dessert, bringing that serene tiramisu post-dinner dessert. In terms of launches, looked at both North America and then global. In North America, over the last 5 years, there have been 25 products, excluding alcohol, because amaretto is inherently tied to alcohol. So 25 launches with an amaretto flavor. And we see these in coffees, cakes, so more on the food side of things, not so much the beverage. And in terms of global launches, we see it's 10 times as much, 276 launches. Again, more on that food side of things. So this flavor is both applicable to beverage and food, depending on what so it's cross-category as well. Now that we've explored that, let's go ahead and have Kelsey talk us through what the tasting experience is like.
And so we're going to start with the amaretto today. If you open the bottle and smell, you should get notes of cherry. I think there's a little bit of caramel. You can kind of tell there's a little bit of boozy alcohol notes. I'm going to go ahead and put it into my iced coffee to taste. So I'm noticing those same notes, very fruit forward, finishes with some caramel notes, some vanilla notes, some boozy alcohol notes.
And so as everybody's tasting, at this time, just between the three of us, Kelsey, you mentioned some of those tasting notes. What other things are people going to be experiencing as they're tasting this? And what other applications do you think this flavor might be useful in?
Yeah, so I think this flavor would be useful in a variety of applications, right? Because amaretto is a beverage. Any sort of beverage application, it'd be a fun twist on, but you could use this in confections. You could use this in bakery or in frozen dessert, possibly. I think those would all be very useful places for this.
And I do think that this that amaretto, even though we don't see it widespread, it really does fit that premium indulgent experience that we saw in that first slide that people associate heavily with Serenity. So I think there is opportunity here to build this out more than we've seen. Yeah,
and just dovetailing on both of your comments, I mean, this is a relatively low number of launches in North America with this flavor, so there is a big white space opportunity beyond coffee creamer or similar products, just to explore this flavor in your application, whether it's something dairy-based, non-dairy, if it's a food product. So there is quite a bit of room to explore with this one. Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to our second tasting of the day. And this is our horchata flavor. So as you're preparing that, let's run through some of the reasons why we chose this flavor as well. So we see horchata, which is a traditional Mexican beverage. In the US, discussions around horchata have grown nearly 6% in the past year. When you combine that with coffee, discussions are up nearly 14%, and a similar growth in conversations with tea. We see more people are talking about this than the amaretto, 14,000 people discussing horchata in a beverage. And we see that there's a much larger sort of food service and play with this. Nearly 25,000 restaurants have a horchata on the menu, with a number of dishes in Pinterest as well. And what are some of those products? So we see this falchata latte, a bit of a seasonal with horchata, along with some other notes. We actually see a retail product. So this is a K-Cup pod, McCafe brand, but it's specifically horchata latte. So we're seeing it on store shelves now, already built into that coffee beverage. And then we see this Pinterest. This is a horchata boba. So again, combining that tea, sort of an traditional Asian beverage with a traditional Mexican beverage, with nearly 2,000 saves. In terms of product launches, not a lot of launches with horchata flavor in the last 5 years. We see liqueur, so there's a couple horchata flavored liqueurs out there. Dairy-based ice cream, again, that tea. And then globally, only about a little over 40 launches, again in similar type products, although here, plant-based beverages, which horchata is the number one category. And just a few examples here of those products, an ice cream and a plant-based milk. So with that, let's go ahead and prep those samples to taste, and then we'll have another discussion.
So next is horchata. So this one's very creamy. You get a lot of the graininess because horchata is a rice-based beverage, and then you get the spice notes, the cinnamon. So I love how this one plays with the coffee. The spice notes really come through.
And so, as I mentioned, horchata is inherently linked to beverage because this is traditionally a Mexican Hispanic beverage. And so people are experiencing that in a drink format, but also in an ice cream based format. People purchase mixes and concentrates to make it home around the globe.
And Kelsey, are there other applications that this might fit with beyond those that we see here? And any watch outs if you do extend it into, say, a bakery item?
Sure. So, I think a lot of the applications we talked about with the amaretto, you could try here. I personally use this in like ice cream, and it is really nice there. Lisa and I talked about using this in a bakery application, and you can certainly try it. I think a lot of the graininess that's unique to horchata might kind of get lost once you're putting it in something that's a bakery item that's bringing its kind of own grain notes. It might just be more of a cinnamon flavor, which can still be very nice. But I, for sure, frozen dessert, it is excellent there.
Okay. And what I like about horchata and its link to Serenity is that it has two pathways to connection. For people who are familiar with the beverage, this is just a traditional connection to home. And then it can also create a connection through a kind of a transportive experience for people who've never experienced horchata, or haven't traveled and tasted it. This is something new for them, which also takes them to that serene place.
Yeah, I really love that the dual nature of this one, appealing to multiple people through multiple methods.
Yep, agreed.
Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to our final tasting. This is pistachio. And before we get into the insights, pistachio is having a resurgence across a lot of food and beverage categories. And we see that in discussions. Discussions around pistachio and beverage are up 35% in the past year. So this is really a buzzy, trending flavor profile in beverages. When it comes to coffee, up over 50%. And a similar amount of discussion growth when it comes to tea. We see over 20,000 people are discussing pistachio and beverage. We see this across the board in terms of dishes, recipes people can save online, and also restaurant dishes, specifically beverages with pistachio. So there's quite a bit of pistachio out there, and we don't see the discussion slowing down in the past year.
It's also multi-generational. We see everybody talking about it. It's not specific to folks that want nostalgia.
Excellent point. Yeah, this cuts across all of those generations. And really, what I think is a big part of the conversation we can't ignore is Starbucks iced pistachio latte that came out in the past year. And we actually see a Pinterest recipe that is a copycat, how to make it home. And they specifically call it out, similar to the Starbucks. And we also see this in that tea application. Not as many people saving this one. This is a frappe, so it's a bit of work. That might be a barrier to entry for some people. They don't want to break out the blender. But we see that this is mint latte made with pistachios. And this is the one where we've seen the most sort of resurgence and number of products. Nearly 200 products in North America with this pistachio flavor. And we see it across foods. We see it across frozen desserts. At shelf, we don't really see it in beverage, at least not in the top 5 categories. So a bit of a white space to start putting that pistachio in unique or non-traditional categories. And we see a similar launch activity across the globe. Again, 10x compared to North America. And again, in very similar categories. And a few examples here with the ice cream, so frozen dessert, and then with the bakery.
I will mention that I just was looking at pistachio overall, and I did see a recent launch in the last 6 months of a pistachio milk that's vanilla flavored. So someone is actually using pistachio as the base for a plant-based drink.
Oh, it's very interesting.
Yeah, just a single entry, so it'll be one to watch.
So we're going to finish today with pistachio. So this pistachio has aroma of super nutty, a little bit ashy, finishes kind of with a deep, fruity, cherry flavor. It reminds me a lot of almond paste. Today we were using a very traditional creamer system, but if we were using something that was maybe higher protein, maybe consisted of alternative milks, I would reach for our library of FMPs to help kind of smooth out some of those off notes, help lift the aroma of the flavor profile, and enhancing sweetness. All of these flavors were designed to create a serene, relaxing experience, and I hope you've been able to take a couple of minutes to enjoy them. We've shared these flavors in a dairy-based format, but these flavors could translate to a variety of applications. They could be used in frozen dessert, they could be used in baking, they could possibly be used in confectionery applications. If you would like some assistance in how to use these flavors in your application, please reach out to me.
We're going to move into our Q&A portion. So if you have any questions, make sure to put them in the Q&A bubble down at the bottom of the screen. But we have a few that have already come in. And just reading through this first one, looks like it might be for Kelsey. So what types of functional ingredients, and they call out adaptogens or botanicals, could contribute to a serene experience beyond just the flavor or the taste?
Yeah, so there are some ingredients and some supplements that are used for kind of mood enhancing benefits, right? So like magnesium or ashwagandha is coming to mind. And so you could use that to kind of bump up the serene experience. I think the one thing you may need to be careful is the off notes that those functional ingredients can contribute, right? So you just want to be cautious about not hindering the experience with a bad taste when we reach for some of those functional ingredients.
Are there certain flavors that are a starting point when you're dealing with something that might carry an off note? I know you talked about FMPs, but are there flavors that you would pair with certain ingredients?
I would say if you're struggling with off notes, vanilla is always a good place to start. Vanilla has a lot of ability to kind of cover and mask, I think, more so than other flavor profiles.
Okay, that's helpful.
Excellent. This one, I think I'm going to take this one. Do people gravitate more towards familiar, comforting flavors or emerging, calm-inducing flavors? I think there's several ways that people gravitate. Lisa, as you mentioned, generations are talking about Serenity in different ways. So if you have a target generation or demographic, it's worth exploring what they're talking about, what they're interested in, and that will help identify what they're gravitating towards. but it's also changes throughout the day. People are fickle at times, and day part really matters. So if it's a serene, calming experience in the morning versus after dinner, your flavors, the flavors that people gravitate towards are going to change. And just shameless self-promotion. We're going to be having a webinar in a few months on that topic of meet me in the moment, so day part, and where flavors fall. So if that is something that interests you, please reach out. Keep an eye out for that invite in the coming months.
Yeah, that's great.
And,
any other questions?
We have one more so far.
Okay.
How are CPG brands responding to the interest in Serenity? Are they innovating? Are they adding claims? What categories is this occurring in? Lisa, I'm going to throw this one over to you.
Sure. When it comes to Serenity and all those experiences that we talked about at the beginning, relaxation, calm, that kind of thing, honestly, right now, healthcare supplements own the innovation in this area. We do see the hot beverages, so teas and coffees, doing a little bit about making claims in that area. Alcohol, of course, we saw that both on the food and the flavor side. Mm-hmm. And then nutritional drinks. Sometimes meals, prepared meals are talking about how it's a relaxing experience. Remember, we saw with some of the generations, they wanted comfort, cozy, traditional, and prepared foods can do that. The claims that they're making, though, really focus on calm and relaxation. Very few people are talking directly about Serenity, and that's probably just as well, because I think it's important to ground it more on the experiences that people are looking for. So there is opportunity through the messaging and the marketing that you do. So, tell people it's premium, tell people it's indulgent or traditional. They'll make that link to, oh, this is going to help me feel good. And then you can associate your formula with that as well, so that you can just make sure that as they're eating and drinking this product, through your messaging and the formula and the flavor, the whole thing is making sense to them and connecting with this need that continues to grow.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, where Serenity is a state of mind, and the experiences, whether it's premium, whether it's comforting, whether it's cozy, take you to that point. You're not going to buy a bag of Serenity, as much as we would like to, right?
Yeah, very much so.
But you can buy a bag of comforting flavor and food. So.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to give people just a few more seconds to put in any last minute Q&As. While we're seeing if any more come through, I just want to say a big thanks to Kelsey and a big thanks to Lisa for joining us on this webinar, and to everybody who's joined and is watching from home or at their office. Thank you for attending and putting in those questions. And don't see any more coming through. So with that, do want to again say thank you and just put it out there that in late spring, so late April or into May, we're going to be having our second webinar where we discuss that premium experience. Something Lisa mentioned in her response to that last question about premium is a component that might bring Serenity. So we're linking all of these together. So please keep an eye out for that webinar invite. We'll be sending that out in, what do you think, Lisa? About a month?
Probably about mid-April. Yep. Exactly.
Mid-April.
Yeah.
So please join us there. And as Lisa mentioned at the outset, you will get a copy of this presentation as an email follow-up. So if you have any questions, our contact info is here. You can always reach out to us. And just with that, just want to say thank you to everybody.
Thanks for watching this episode of Flavor Science from FlavorSum. Whether you want to formulate with a tried and true flavor or innovate with a brand new creation, having a great flavor partner accelerates your success. At FlavorSum, we combine expertise, responsiveness, and infrastructure to deliver an all-in-one solution that helps growing food and beverage companies improve their speed to market. Part of our mission is making flavor sourcing more efficient, effective, and enjoyable with best-in-class responsiveness, competitive lead times, and products designed to meet your goals. Work with us to create the delicious new products your customers are craving.